Dr. Nell Thomas is a family physician in Minden. And a couple of weeks back, we chatted with Dr. Thomas about a campaign that she has spearheaded that included billboards and rather comprehensive website all about heat health. Now, today, we thought we'd focus on one of the sections of heat health. And today, we're going to deal with where we live. Dr. Thomas, thanks for joining us again.
Absolutely my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting this opportunity.
You know, going back in history, and I must admit, I cribbed a little bit of information from your website. About 6,000 years ago, humans tended to gather around the equator, and then the population moved out from there. And from what we're reading and hearing, this is really changing. That migration is going to be a serious problem for the human race. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. So climate change means that the temperature and the living conditions are changing on the planet, in many cases from safe to unsafe, and in many places on Earth are becoming or already are actually dangerous or not survivable. Yes, we had a climate niche within which humans evolved, 11 to 15 degrees Celsius, and mostly around the equator. So the Goldilocks zone, or the comfort zone within which humans, the human species, survives and thrives, is very much threatened with climate change. Extreme heat, but also extreme weather events. Obviously, sea level rise is affecting coastal communities, but loss of arable land, loss of safe potable water are all becoming factors in people's decisions to move. In some cases, planned moves because the regions are predictably becoming not habitable, but in other cases, very sudden and extreme weather events are causing people to become classed into a group called climate refugees. So the climate refugees coming to Canada are primarily from 4 different countries and have been from 4 different Asian countries for the last number of years, from the Philippines, from Bangladesh, from India, and China. So these countries are currently breaking heat temperatures every day right now. In fact, scorching heat set records the 3rd week of June 2024, last week, set over 1,400 heat records over 5 continents on our precious blue Earth. So food crops are withering along with people who are simply falling over dead from the heat. Water is unavailable or it's not safe. In many cases, there are extreme floods and flash floods and high volumes of water, torrential rains happening, often because of the heating oceans. The oceans are getting so hot that hurricanes and extreme weather events are occurring. And in many of these countries, there's lack of infrastructure from poverty, or just simply it wasn't necessary in the past to have homes built to withstand extreme weathers. So towns, roads, communication system, transportation systems are all being wiped out. And people are on the move. They're either on the move in emergency situations, or they're on the move in more planned migration. And that affects North America as well. So, you know, we have people who live in coastal areas, both east and west coast in Canada and the United States, because of sea level rise and the erosion of roads and lands in coastal areas. Whole towns and communities are moving. Roads and houses are falling into the ocean, into the rivers along the Gaspé and along the Gaspé St. Lawrence River in Canada, for example. And in terms of flooding that's causing movement, we saw in May last month in southern Brazil, hundreds of towns underwater. It was horrific scenes of, you know, whole cities underwater. 150,000 people displaced because of extreme flooding. The number of people that are going to be on the move because of climate change is hard to predict, but I know the World Bank has predicted that over 216 million people, that's 216 million people, will be forced to move by 2050. You know, it's so hard to know because things are changing so quickly on our planet. We can't predict. The low-lying Maldive Islands, that archipelago in the Indian Ocean, you know, they predict that 80% of their land will be not habitable because it will be simply underwater. They're anticipating, you know, the World Bank anticipates that future sea level rise will be 10 to 100 centimeters. So, you know, and 3 meters they're anticipating. Obviously, any of the coastal regions and cities in New York City and Miami, et cetera, are going to be underwater. I mean, we talk about that sweet spot or the Goldilocks zone in terms of temperature. And there are many parts of the world right now where there's no way to cool down. It's just simply too hot. People can't exist. Animals can't exist. Plants can't exist. So they're predicting 1 to 3 billion people will be outside the optimal climate conditions for survival. Yeah, it's massive amounts of human population, but we're not just talking about humans. We focus on humans. We're talking about all of the critters that we share this planet with, and that includes, you know, plants as well, and trees. And when you look at pictures in Africa of the loss of the wild animals, and you know, horrible images of mounds of carcasses of zebras and animals that are succumbing to the extreme heat, that, you know, they just don't have water. It's too hot. And in terms of,
I was reading today in one of the British newspapers that the prediction is that some of the mega cities on the west coast of Africa by the year 2080 will essentially be underwater. And when you think of that a whole area of a massive nation like Africa, they're going to be on the move, and the infrastructure that will be destroyed along with that, it's pretty frightening stuff, isn't it?
well, there's a lot of policy and government responsibility for those countries like Canada, that yes, we have folks that are vulnerable for sure, but we have a vast land here. We have a large country that has a lot of resources, despite what Canadians might argue, that, you know, what is ethical and moral and right and just in terms of looking at a planet where the first world nations are primarily responsible for this predicament that the third world nations are living in and dying in. And so what is our responsibility? And, you know, there's a lot you can read about government policy and research suggesting that we need to increase accommodation for the desperate people, like, as you say, from Africa and Asia. And it's difficult to imagine right now, and we're getting into some political, more philosophical, ethical, moral, and political concepts here, but just how welcoming do we need to be, and should we be, for the people who aren't able to survive because of global warming, climate change. And even in Europe, you know, when you're thinking about the fact that the balancing systems on the planet that are keeping portions of the planet habitable, and those balancing systems are being disrupted to such an extent that, you know, Northern Europe is going to be cold and potentially without water. Now, these are things we're looking at people in first world nations. So I was reading yesterday that the aquifers supplying fresh water for most European countries are in critical condition right now. And they're saying, you know, up to 25% of the fresh water from aquifers is contaminated, and you know, these are previously unrecognized factors for affecting important crop producing countries like Spain, France, Belgium, and the Netherlands. So even folks in first world countries are, well, obviously in the United States, we're looking at, you know, the grain, fruits and vegetables and grains that we are reliant on are going to be all affected, our food supply. It's not just affecting countries far away, for sure.
Yeah, and it would seem that the people most at risk under these circumstances and these temperatures tend to be poor and homeless people, at risk people, in various spots around the world.
For sure. Yeah. Last night I was on a webinar organized by 350.Canada, which is connected to 350.org, which was created originally by Bill McKibben, a longtime activist, author, environmentalist. Anyway, the 350.Canada currently has a program where it's a campaign and they're encouraging heat pumps. And one of the comments about the number of folks that died in the heat dome of 2021 in BC was that the vast majority of those folks that succumbed were either older people or people that were renting, not owning their own homes, or people that were they had mental health issues. All of those folks are far more vulnerable and compromised. The older folks don't have the same ability to recognize when they're hot. They don't have the same physiological cooling systems, and their bodies are not as effective at cooling. Obviously, the same with little children. And the little kids are vulnerable also because they're at the mercy and they're vulnerable to the adults around them
Sure.
whose care they are in. So I was on a hike a couple of weeks ago and I saw a little baby in a stroller parked in the full sun midday on a bridge while the parents were fishing. The fishing parents were in the shade of the overhanging tree branches and the baby was crying and not able to articulate, but very hot. I wished I'd had some heat health cards with me. I could have handed out, but I just said, baby is way too hot. This is not good. Baby, in fact, was red and
Oh my gosh.
yeah, sitting and again, parked in the full sun on the bridge, a footpath kind of bridge, as the parents were fishing. But people aren't really thinking about, yeah, how hot it's getting, and we're not used to it, and we have to pay more attention that the risks are far greater than people are accustomed to. People who are experienced hikers are finding themselves facing conditions that they have never faced before. I know we're supposed to talk about homes and migration today, but it's easy to get sidetracked.
Well, and when you bring it down to a more personal level, all of us in our homes or wherever we live, we have needs that we need to look after. And one of the things that I really have enjoyed about your website is that there's a lot of good help in the links that you've provided to give us advice on how we can help our own home when it comes
Indeed.
to managing increasing temperatures. One that I really liked was because simplicity is something that everybody appreciates, and the Intact Center in one of your links had a really simple and instructive infographic, something that anybody could understand. So I would think that there's real impetus for all of us to be more informed and more proactive.
Indeed. So that comes out of Waterloo, Ontario, and it was, I think it was Sue Shikazi, who's one of the employees, pardon me, of the Kawartha Pine Ridge, pardon me, local health unit had connected me to that very useful resource. So there is a nice, quick and dirty single page graphic that a homeowner can refer to. And there's a little video as well, step by step, how to prepare your home and protect your home from wildfires. There's another one for how to protect your home from extreme heat. There's another one for how to protect your home from flooding. Very practical and useful information there. The Heat Health website really is all about bringing people to a location where they can find resources. That's the whole purpose. And the resources are all categorized and organized so that you can find what's relevant to you. Obviously, if you're a renter, not a homeowner, you're going to be less motivated to look at those resources or even looking at heat pumps.
Yeah.
But the heat pump programs also, they reduce your home heating cost. They provide you air conditioning in the summer. They provide you heat in the winter. They reduce energy. And yes, they are cheaper. There's huge campaigns right now for heat pumps. And again, from the 350.Canada webinar last night, talking about the importance of getting heat pumps out. And they said there was a community that was less affected by the heat dome in 2021 in BC because that community had switched everybody over to heat pumps the winter before. And so they had far fewer casualties from that heat dome, which, it's just go.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So you're right. There are some excellent resources listed under that first icon that we're talking about today. How to protect your home. There's also links to how to green your home, how to green your property, how to make your home stay cool during the daytime, how to best economize using fans, etc. If you are somebody who is living in an apartment and it's just too hot and it's poorly insulated, there are cooling centers that you can reach out to in your community as well. I didn't put those specifically in the website because the website's going to go to a much broader geographical area, but it's important to understand that you can reach out to your local town, call your local library, your local municipal office, find out where the cooling centers are. If you're someone who's at risk because your home is simply too hot.
Now, can I ask you, have you had any feedback on heathealth.ca to this point in time?
I have. I've had amazing feedback. I've had people asking if I could put a donation button somewhere on the website so they could donate money. I have no idea how that would work. Other people who said, oh, we need to get another billboard. We need to put up more billboards. I now have t-shirts and I've got business cards that are small versions of the billboard. I haven't gone on to the website to see how many hits it's getting, and I don't really know how to do that, but I will find out how to do that because somebody asked me the other day and I said, I don't know, how would I do that? But I guess there is a way. And I think it's important just to, I wear the t-shirt and I give out the business cards, and I realize that even this conversation today is going to enlighten a few more people and they can share the website. As the summer goes along, I will be editing the website as well. So I'll be putting more current maps and graphs in there. And I've got a few new links, some Canadian weather graphic links, I can't remember what else, but there's some good fun stuff for people. I think I mentioned last time when we were chatting, there's some games to teach kids about climate change, and mostly it's about getting us prepared. I mean, that's the whole point here, is being aware, and the awareness leads us to preparedness, and the preparedness leads us to adaptation. Because when we talk about reducing the risks of climate change, I think we're past, well, we all know we're past the point of stopping climate change. That ship has sailed. We are now living climate change as it is unrolling in real time. And so what we now have to be better at doing is adapting. That means affecting our decisions, our behaviors, our activities, everything from don't park your child in a stroller on a bridge while you fish, to, thinking about, no, I don't think I can go out in the boat today. It's too hot. No, I can't plan. You have to change your plans. You have to rethink how you're going to go about your day or your property. Or, we were supposed to go on a kayak trip on Sunday that was well ahead of time organized to raise money for Parry Sound, Franklin Island Biosphere. And we all raised money and did our part. And then the day came when we were supposed to do the paddle. And for the first time, I think ever, they actually had to cancel it because of extreme weather and lightning. And we were just not safe to go out on Georgian Bay that day. But, it's awfully hard for us to say, oh, the weather wins, nature wins today. I can't do what I want to do because nature rules. But I'm just going to say this, nature bats last. Nature always bats last. We are small fry. Nature is the big guy, and we need to pay attention.
How true, how true. Well, I'm delighted to hear that you're getting positive response, and we'll chat soon again. We'll talk about another section on the website, but for our listeners and viewers, a good starting point, we want you to go to heathealth.ca. I want you to look at some of the links and start taking in some of that information. We may have questions, you never know. So be sure and check out the website. Thank you, Dr. Thomas. It's been wonderful to chat with you again. We'll talk soon again.
Absolutely. I look forward to it. Thank you.
Dr. Thomas is a family physician from Minden. And remember, the website is heathealth.ca. Be sure and check it out.